Fire Tomlin chants in the second half of the Steelers loss to the Bills in Week 13. Unbelievable. Thanks to Noah Strackmine from All Steelers Talk for posting that video, by the way, as this is now the beginning of the post-Tomlin era, whether ownership likes it or not. 19 years, never a losing season. 2025 could change that, but at this point, it doesn't matter. Fans are done, and voicing their frustration will be the catalyst to make this Tomlin's final season coaching the Steelers. Here we go.
Van to the corner of the end zone. Oh, for a touchdown!
Dawson, a new bear, long form 4 times a week. I'm feeling a sense of relief as this is coming to an end. I know the frustration is still there. It's going to build until we get to a crescendo, but I feel like that, along with booing Renegade yesterday as the Steelers just embarrassed themselves in the second half, will serve as a catalyst to make this Tomlin's last stand. So as much as it sucks to see them lose, I think myself and many out there had acknowledged this season wasn't going to go your way several weeks ago. So now, like, the way it's going shows you can actually take steps forward here once we get to the offseason.
You know, the craziest thing about this is they still got to see Johnny twice and the Ravens tripping all over themselves, and the hole the Bengals dug means that even as this thing continues to deteriorate, they could still win the North, still go into the playoffs, and embarrass themselves even bigger in the wild card.
A 5th consecutive blowout playoff loss, that would be a catalyst as well. I don't think making the playoffs and losing can save Tomlin's job. I will put it at AFC title game, but you also need a bunch of things to go better, and I just don't think it's on the cards for the way they're coaching and their personnel.
Well, the biggest problem, and this is the same thing, you know, I know we joke about, and you tease me a little bit about always repping Kentucky stuff, and that's just something that the wife and Big Blue Nation and we all talk about, right, when you're a part of it. And they just parted ways with their coach. And if the tight-pocketed Kentucky Wildcats are willing to go $38 million deep into a buyout and change their ways after everyone thought, like, when it gets to the point where players are actively not trying hard, when it gets to the point where you're just laying – Cam Hayward's inventing reasons to fight Josh Allen because there's just, like, nothing left to try to juice this team up. Like, that film is bad. And
yeah, it is real bad. And I think it's notable when fans boo your song. Like, I don't think I would ever do that. Like, Renegade should be untouchable. You know, that should be a song that no matter what, we're going to enjoy our time at the park today and at least sing Renegade, right? But I think when the sentiment is so bad and the toxicity has become so elevated that is happening, what you have now is not only a fan base, but maybe players that have lost belief and ability to buy into the system. And if that doesn't come squarely back on the head coach, I don't know what does.
When you see a team go into a game without both of their starting tackles, and clearly have a plan that they aren't forced to change at all, and they have little wrinkles off of that, and then you're out there not scraping over the top, and you're out there inventing reasons to get into scrapes. Like, the most frustrating thing about yesterday is that when you watch the film, you can break it down to one team just being a step ahead, and that being a hell of an audition tape for Joe Brady to replace Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, that was one thing. And I don't know if they have enough good players that great coaching would make them better, but you see it happen all the time, whether it's San Francisco or this year with the Cowboys. Like, it is very possible for even really good head coaches to just not have enough good players. But one thing I'm squarely convinced of right now is that the Steelers, aren't doing anything from the coaching perspective to give their players a real great chance to be successful. And I don't know in today's NFL if you can get it done without without high level coaching. And, right now we're just kind of picking up the pieces on this loss, but I want to go to Aaron Rodgers here because he was talking post game about their lack of offensive production. And this is another thing that I think, does it come back on him? Maybe a little bit, but the lack of urgency, the lack of professionalism, maybe from Aaron Rodgers' teammate is stark as well.
When there's film sessions, everybody shows up. And when I check to a route, you do the right route, Like, John and I just weren't on the same page. I checked to his in-breaker and he ran out-breaker. John is a true professional, so I'm sure he's sick about that.
So at this point in the season, we're going to score when we get everybody in film session, when everybody gets on the same page. Like, if you have not been able to generate that, that's horrible leadership. And Aaron Rodgers can only do so much as a player. Like, if you're trying to organize film sessions and guys aren't showing up, and Arthur Smith or the wide receivers coach, whoever your positional coach isn't like, guys, what is going on? We have a major opportunity here. That's, that's real bad signs that your culture is broken.
Well, if he's willing to name names on routes, and if you watch the film back, there's a couple of plays that really stand out. But the one that he brought up with Jonnu, you're familiar with the route concept, China, a corner route over two quick little ins, right? And off of that, if Jonnu is supposed to go instead of corner, he's supposed to go in, and Roman Wilson runs a whip, and who's outside runs a takeoff. Everyone kind of runs the opposite of what they're supposed to do in China. And Aaron Rodgers gives a choke signal. And a lot of times you have words that are similar, syllable, letter, like the whole 9 yards in the playbook. The same way you have left and right stuff. Like if it was a draw, it's easel and board. Easel is left, board is right. And then there's stuff that's built into that to try to like get the defense to guess. What you see at the line of scrimmage, and I think the reason he used the words John, who's a true professional, and I'm sure he's sick about that, is two of the three guys ran the route variation they were supposed to because they were looking at their quarterback, and Jonnu Smith was looking at his damn shoes. And then as the ball snapped, he's looking at the route like, am I hot? Because for a minute, it looks like it might be a pop pass. And instead, he runs to the corner and Rodgers is leaving a touchdown on the field. So what are we talking about? Are we talking about Jonnu Smith not showing up to film? Or are we talking about Jonnu Smith not looking at the quarterback when he's changing the play, or both? Is Roman Wilson in that room? Like, who else are we willing to dog out here? And who else are we willing to run this offense through? Because it took them being down, and it took maybe Aaron Rodgers being a blink away from his career being over. Because if those bones break and he starts talking about missing 4 and 6 games, that's a wrap. That's when we're going to finally hit 88 in the seam. That's when we're finally going to, ratchet this thing up and take some chances. It's like, what was the plan? And where is this thing going?
Yeah, all-time bad game, all-time bad moment for Rodgers in, 2 of the last 3 games? His last 2 games played have been among his most embarrassing. Completed just 10 of 21 attempts, 117 yards, his third lowest total in any game where he threw at least 20 passes. He gets knocked down. His nose is bloody. He's looking old. Like, this is it for Aaron Rodgers, right? There is no next year. This is Willie Mays stumbling around in center field. And he made a couple of clutch plays early in the season. They were getting turnovers. They beat the Patriots. They beat the Colts, and they were winning enough to be like, okay, this is coming around. They were getting their running game going. But the longer this season goes on, the older and more washed up he looks.
Yeah, and it's not going to get any easier with Broderick Jones out. It's not going to get any easier when you've got you've got offensive linemen lined up in the slot, and Jonnu Smith blocking Gregory Rousseau with the game on the. There's just so much that's wanting right now. Where do you start? Who do you point the finger at first? You talked about culture and leadership. We've talked about scheme, and then we've talked about the players themselves executing, right? And where do you start with that? Building it back up from the bullet point that I just put down. Players got to play better. Well, that's what they always say. You got Cam Hayward 2 weeks ago saying, if we don't call the perfect play, but we execute it perfectly, we still have a chance. So there's a disconnect between the players and the scheme, which takes you down a peg, right? So if you're a all-pro, now you're playing at a Pro Bowl. If you're a Pro Bowl, you're a starter, backup, practice squad. Like, these guys aren't playing to the level of their talent. Not forget the paycheck. I'm talking about their talent, because you've got, TJ Watt trying to set the edge with no one scraping over the top, or everyone blaming him for everything that's going wrong. But where's the push coming from the other guys up and down the piano keys? Or, these corners, Steelers corners, are supposed to not be afraid to put their face in the fan. But when you start asking corners and safeties to play like linebackers, hey, we still good with trading Minkah Fitzpatrick? Because he did that shit. And I think when you start talking about the dogs that he inherited, going back to Bill Cowher, and I'm sure I'll get comments about how, I'm saying he can only win with Cowher's players. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I am saying is that those guys that were left over from that regime were dogs. And what I am saying is, right now, there isn't one person on this team who's willing to step up on the field of play and say enough is enough based on last night's tape, except Nick Herbig.
Yeah, it's a dumpster fire. And as a head coach, I think you're responsible for all of it. You should know things that you can, offer all of your assistants to make things more efficient, not less efficient. And when things are getting to a point where there's leaks in the dam in so many different places, it's absolutely time. We have a video up that we did late last week. I think that was Thursday or Friday, on the early head coach candidates that we like. New Bear mentioned Joe Brady there at the top of the show. That's one of them. There's a half dozen or so guys we talk about: Flores, Belichick, Saban, and at least one name that not many teams are talking about. But if I was starting a team, that would be amongst my first list of interviewees. There is a petition to fire Tomlin. New Bear, are you one of the 3,023 folks that have jumped on here to change.org? Petition for petition for the retirement of Tomlin as head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Oh, sorry.
My back.
Yeah.
That doubled overnight, and it's funny and it's sad. And that's the part of this that cuts the deepest. Is there was a time where I would have been at the top of the list to sign up for embracing this guy or giving him every chance because of the swag and because of the belief and the things that, the same way we're talking about juice being taken out, or guys being knocked down a notch, when you have it the other way, when you're leading man, your coach, your quarterback, your alpha in the room is that gladiator type of dude, it classes things up. And when you can scheme and put guys in a position to play to the absolute peak of their potential, and you're saying cool stuff, and people are making Omar Epps memes, and you're going back to movies like The Program and Darnell Jefferson and thinking about all the connective football tissue of this guy's life.
Sorry, I got the 4-year-old banging on the door there. Just had to holler at her real quick.
It's all good. I think last time I was over here elbowing the baby in the face harder than anybody was trying to attack a backup offensive lineman from Buffalo last night. But the thing when that stuff gets stale, right, is that there's no question about it. It's black and white. There's no gray area. When you watch the Hard Knocks stuff back and you see the players slumped in their chairs when Tomlin's up on stage, when you watch a Tomlin Tuesday press conference, and then the players go through the week and Terrell Austin goes through the week parroting what he's saying, but emotionless, like zombie mode. And going back to what I'm going to repeat what Cam said, even if we don't have the perfect play call, if we execute perfect, there's nothing in the scheme, there's nothing in the system, there's nothing in the way that they're doing things that can help them get out of trouble. There's no allowance. And then, oh, by the way, when they do try to change it, because of the way they're coached and because of the way that they're failing, nobody understands because not everyone's paying attention. Aaron Rodgers is saying not everyone's watching film. You watch the film and you see not everyone looking at their quarterback when he makes a change. The same thing is true when James Pierre is out there hopping up and down and trying to communicate a coverage change, and guys aren't looking at him, or guys are just trying to quote unquote play the play that's called. And that just doesn't work in today's game.
It doesn't. Okay. What else didn't work in yesterday's game? Cam Hayward trying to get in the head of Josh Allen. Here he is post-game talking about the genesis for he and Allen's dispute that ran for, I don't know, probably 3 quarters or so.
Josh Allen, it seemed a little bit of frustration early on. Can you talk about it, or
being kneed in my stomach, and then just jawing back and forth, and then ticked off the entire game because as a quarterback they're protected, but I'm not. Just pisses me off.
You saying he need you or
yes,
someone else?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Did you cross the line throughout the game? Or
That was that one incident.
Is that on purpose by him? You think?
Yes. You even said after, I had to do something to get you off of me.
Kim, how do you put into words the frustration?
So I think a lot of this comes back to losing, and getting embarrassed and things not going your way. But I mean, fairly early in the game, the defense was playing well. It wasn't until late where I would have had that emotion like, okay, they're beating us on the scoreboard. I'm going to make sure they know they're in a fight when they're flying home. They're going to think, wow, what got into Cam Hayward? That was pretty crazy. I don't mind that when you're losing, getting up in somebody's face and, trying to intimidate them or whatever. It's competition. We're men. It's kind of what we do in all forms of competition. But, I guess I don't have that big of a problem with it. I think when you're losing, fans are going to pile on you. And I still haven't seen video of it, but if there's a clip out there of Josh Allen kneeing him, maybe we could get a little bit better context on that.
TV has the cut of it. If it happened, and what people are saying is they're protecting Josh Allen because he's a quarterback and a potential, bigger face of the franchise and MVP and stuff. But even if he did, let's talk about Cam Newton having a hold of his arm for no reason, and let's go back in time to Josh Allen had this problem with guys like Christian Wilkins grabbing his groin. And oh, by the way, the ref's not protecting Josh Allen when he slides and gets decked. And any other quarterback in the league, it's 15 yards, and the refs are just like, nothing to see here, keep it moving. So, at a certain point, this becomes fake tough guy stuff. First of all, you're a 350-pound defensive tackle, and a quarterback at the bottom of the pile that you're playing patty cake with gives you a little knee, and you're talking about getting kneed in the stomach and it pissed you off. How about go make a play? How about go tackle his ass before he picks up 5, 6, 7 yards or whatever is required for the touchdown, first down, before the get down where you hit him late and they don't throw the penalty on the play. Like, I have a problem with it when it's like the game is over, let's go start a bench clearing brawl type of stuff because we couldn't get it done on the field, so now we're going to act like jackasses.
Yeah. I think a lot of defensive players might come in half-cocked a lot of times too because of what you mentioned, the rules protecting quarterbacks but not defensive players.
Well,
like,
dude,
I think
there's like
legitimate beef to be had there.
There's 5
I don't mind the fight. Like when you're losing, don't just accept it. Try anything.
Yep.
I'm there with that. I don't want a brawl to end the game, but it is good TV. Hell, if you want to go, if you want to go out there and start a fight for our entertainment, at least fans got something out of their game ticket for paying for this. I mean, it's a nasty, violent game, and it's only because the NFL has over legislated it that the players act the way they do. This is a fight, 11 on 11, about 125 times a game.
Before I get guilty of, Cutter Boley, the Kentucky quarterback, went into the Louisville sideline and he got his helmet ripped off and nobody fought for him. So I'll go to the other side of this and say, like, when stuff happens and it's legitimate beef, then the only thing is, why are you punching dudes in the helmet and breaking your hand? Like, let's maybe get someone's helmet off before we start hitting them in the head with the polycarbonate shell. But to your point, and the reason I was getting fired up trying to interrupt you there for a minute, is there's like 5+ minute mixtapes of Josh Allen being the LeBron James of the NFL and being a flop artist and getting, all kinds of stuff to draw penalties. But when they don't protect him, that's the Cam Newton side of it. When you get these 6'5", 240-pound unicorns and they're just like, oh, okay, you're not Mahomes and you're not Brady who can't protect himself, right? So if you breathe on this dude or if you get him on the sideline, like Caleb Williams, you saw him get a shot and he was still in bounds and people were losing their minds because he's a quarterback, right? That's how much the perception of it has changed. We're going back in time to my childhood hero, Jimmy McManiac. If they would have protected Jim McMahon like they protect these guys today, he might still be playing.
But these defensive players are just washed. I think your point holds about Cam Hayward. Go out there and make a play, be better, do something big. What's he got? 1 sack and 18 tackles for the year?
1.5. It's yeah.
So, I get it, but do you have any defensive players who are really good in their prime? And I think the answer to that is no, unfortunately. Ramsey, Watt, Hayward, maybe Harmon's going to become that player. Maybe Peyton Wilson will become that player, but probably not. Probably a 6.5 or 7 out of 10 type of guy. And I think what's coming to roost right now is just the failures you've had in the draft over the last 7 or 8 years. It's not just inability to find a quarterback. It's an inability to find that next generation of dudes.
So the problem that we've talked about for the past couple of years when it gets to nut cutting time and people say, well, TJ didn't have any plays like in a playoff game, no counting stats, just like he did last night. And previously, and this is why I'm really concerned. Previously, it was because I would have defended him and said it's because TJ feels like he has to do something outside of his assignment and go get a peanut punch or jump inside, and then he leaves the defense exposed. What I'm really concerned about is the tape from last night shows them, in many cases, not being ready for what was called and being undermanned or being aligned incorrectly and then just being outnumbered. But then they didn't adjust. And they continued running the same play. That's why TJ Watt it was the same play over and over again. And then you see guys like Baldinger break it down, and there's like an opportunity for them to have the math be right, not because of an adjustment, but necessarily, but because they just maybe called a different defense to try to show them a different look. And you see a guy like Ray Davis go for more last night than he had on the whole season because they make a small adjustment on the other side and just keep it on track and hammer it back up inside. So it just seems like that when you talk about being one step ahead, one step behind, it's like, how do you not overreact? And how do you not put your stars in a position where they feel like they have to take chances? Well, when you see all these stills in particular, where you're talking about, the Mina Kimeses and anybody who's looking at the tape and posting stuff saying, look at these duo blocks, look at these holes. When you zoom in on them, you got a linebacker who isn't just plastered with a defensive tackle getting pushed into his back. You got a guy who's not even in a gap. He's literally up the ass of the defensive lineman in front of him. And it's just like, why? What is happening? What is being taught, coached? And then how are we playing so badly that you've got folks who look like they just don't even know where they're supposed to go?
Yeah, I think the game's passed him by. I think maybe Tomlin's influence on his assistants, not going out and finding assistants who are up to speed on all of the modern trends and what is winning, instead taking guys that you like and thinking you're going to drop knowledge on them on how to be a successful coach in the NFL. Like, Tomlin's at a point in his career 2 decades into his tenure where he needs to be tapping into a new network of people that can help keep him young and keep him fresh while he does what he does best. And then I think, who knows what Arthur Smith really is. He's had some big failures, but he's had a decent amount of success. And you have to wonder how much, Tomlin is neutering what he would like to do offensively to sort of make this thing work. Like, if you don't have great offensive line play, you really got to be trying to trick him and dick him. And there's just not enough of that going on the offensive side either. How about some overreactions? Adding Aaron Rodgers in hindsight was a mistake. It's dragging the mess out. And he just wasn't good enough. Like, if you look at it, the Jets wanted him, who are a bad organization. Kevin O'Connell with the Vikings preferred J.J. McCarthy and Carson Wentz to Aaron Rodgers at $15 million. Like, looking back on it, I wouldn't have done it. I would have embraced being as bad as possible to put yourself in a position maybe to draft Mendoza or somebody else.
So signing Aaron Rodgers alone, I would say not a mistake. Signing Aaron Rodgers and then paying DK Metcalf without another receiver and not moving for another receiver at the deadline and or forcing the ball to Roman Wilson or even Pat Freiermuth to create a second legitimate receiving option, et cetera, and all, like, the building blocks of – it's not just about sending George Pickens for a 3. What George Pickens is doing in Dallas would have never happened in Pittsburgh. Like, everyone just needs to stop with that narrative. that's on Tomlin too. So signing Aaron Rodgers in a vacuum, no. And here's why. Their plan has been year to year to just do what's out there, whether that's a combination of Fields and Russ or Aaron Rodgers. They're going to do the same damn thing next year if Tomlin is in charge of this thing. So Aaron Rodgers was the best version of what they're doing, which is not give Sam Darnold $100 million because you just think he's going to see ghosts. And you want to be able to say, look at us going, quote unquote, all in while we still hoard picks and hope for the future, because we're going to win now and next, which, as you've talked about all the time, is literally not possible.
No, you really can't unless you get incredibly lucky. I mean, all those draft picks do represent hope. There's some fun to be had there, but I feel like right now this isn't an overreaction. Like, their best offensive play is a screen to Kenny Gainwell. Like, I think right now, if you called 30 of those a game, you might give yourself a better chance to win.
I don't think you can call it a bigger overreaction that Kenny Gainwell is their best player on offense right now, which is insane. It's absolutely insane.
But the entire offense is dysfunctional, you know? It's not just the quarterback room. And the defense, it's legacy names. And it sucks, but it sucks to admit that, because I don't know if there's a lot of hope for 2026 defensively either. I think you got to rip the Band-Aid off, though, and consider trading TJ Watt. Like, what could you get for him? You really got to tear this thing down. And that, I think, would be the best benefit of a new head coach, a coach that was kind of willing to take a step back in 2026 and be so bad because you've traded away your good players for picks, and now you're waiting for those picks to hit and mature. And then after 2026, drafting your quarterback after you've been god-awful, maybe 4-13 or something like that. Like, that's the path forward to hopefully being a pretty good team by 2027.
What did you texted me last night? The shame of this is they've won too many games to have that highest pick. And what's really crazy about it is, I'm sitting here going, okay, Ravens, Dolphins, Lions, Browns, Ravens. The Dolphins all of a sudden are plucky again, and the Lions are going to be fighting for their playoff lives. The Ravens both times, and you got Shedeur. They're going to make Shedeur Sanders look like an actual NFL football. Like, are they going to go 0-5, 1-4, 2-3, 3-2, 4-1? Like, what do the next 5 games look like? Where, unfortunately, for everyone who was chanting what they were chanting or signed the petition or can just see what's real in front of them, the North is still on the table.
It is. And maybe some fans out there are still like, yeah, get me to the playoffs and make it a successful season. I don't know what percentage of fans that is right now, but I think 2-3 is very possible. 3-2 is very possible. Anything else is an extreme. I guess the most Steelers thing they could do would be to go to Baltimore Sunday afternoon at 1:00 and win down there and just drag out the pain a little bit more. But I think right now at 6 wins, you wouldn't be in a horrible spot to move up. I mean, that's probably the 8th or 9th pick. You could take draft capital and maybe move to 5 or 6 and take the 2nd or 3rd quarterback off the board if you want to do that.
Well, and a lot of teams who are going to be up really high don't need a quarterback because they just got him.
Yeah. And, they're willing to trade back, but I'm not willing to give up like 3 ones to go to the top of this draft.
Not for any of these quarterbacks. No.
But there's the chance. And maybe all you want to do is play Will Howard next year, intentionally be terrible, plan for, hey, let's let this kid maybe figure it out. We got Mason Rudolph backing him up if things get really atrocious. And we're probably headed for a season with 4 or 5 wins if Howard makes it all 17 games. And if he says, hey, guess what, guys, I'm the next Tom Brady, or I'm the next, fill in the blank day 3 quarterback, Dak Prescott or whatever, then that would be an incredible development as well. But I'd put the probability of that happening in the low single percentiles.
Well, because they're not going to do that, can we talk about something else they're not going to do that they should if they play Will Howard? How about give me 1 year? Give me 1 year of John Gruden. Gruden loves Will Howard, so let him be the bridge guy, and then you can play Will Howard and turn him into Tom Brady, and we can all tune in every week to watch the greatest reality show on NFL TV.
Got to run. Back soon. Till then, we'll see you here on the Knoll Road.